Hey everyone, very good morning. Okay, so hey Nahid, hey Sachin, Shiva, Sunil. Good morning, Shiva. I hope you guys are doing well. Okay, good, Shiva. Yeah. So, have you guys? I'm going to ask, anyways, to the entire participants today. I mean, are there any blockers? Anything that you have tried and faced any issues anywhere else? Meanwhile, okay. Okay, good, Shiva. Okay. So let me know. Like sometimes, I can spare some time at the end of the class if you guys need, or even if I join, 5 10. I generally join 5 minutes earlier, so we have that time as well to discuss if there are any blockers. Okay, feel free to ask that. Okay, let me grab something. Okay, is my screen visible and my audio is also clear? Can I get a confirmation? Okay, okay, thank you. So we have a lot of things to cover, a lot of demos. So let's see. Hey, thanks, Sachin. Meanwhile, let me also do the spit test. Hi everyone, I see few more folks. Hi Gana. I hope you guys are getting what I'm trying to teach you. It's not going bouncers uh, on you guys, and I hope you guys are making or maybe practicing as well. Is that a no? I should suppose, or there is no answer. There is no response. Let me start a timer meanwhile. Let's wait for 2 more minutes for people to join. I see already around half of the batch has already joined. From connectivity perspective, I'm good. Okay. So guys, I would strongly suggest that you start practicing, okay? Otherwise, again, as I said yesterday also, you will feel lagged a lot, right? So you go with the flow with me. If you have any doubts, or at least maybe you can try it on the weekdays or weekends whenever you have some time, so that in the next coming section, you can ask those doubts. Otherwise, it will be just me teaching you, and it will, pile up a lot. Because at the end of the class, at end of this course, I'm going to cover all of these topics in the sample questions, and that time that will be very much interactive. I'll be asking for the answers, right, for each question. So what do you think, and what that kind of discussion, it will be interactive. So that time I want some participation as well. So unless you practice all these concepts and everything, right, you won't be able to answer those. uh, okay. Let me get my setup. Okay, so first we'll talk about machine types. Okay, time's up. We can get started. So, any other doubts that you have from the previous any of the sessions, or shall we get started and continue with compute engine? Any doubts? Last call for the previous sessions. Okay, I take that as a no. So yesterday we have started with compute engine, right? We have seen the introduction, what is compute engine, what is virtual machine, what are the different features, how is it is different than desktop, right? A normal desktop or a laptop, and then some of the features, right? Scalability, right sizing, different patch management, pricing, right? So all these things we have seen. So now we'll continue with the next topic. Is Windows image available? Yes, that's what I told yesterday, Siva. That will be one of the homework you need to try out. Let's see. And but Windows machines are not being used, right? uh, just for sake of having some hands-on, you can try Windows VM, Linux VM, anything, but I want you guys to try out as a homework demo. Okay. um, Meanwhile, on the machine types, we'll get started. So what is basically a machine type, right? By the the name itself, you understand. So let's say you have a Linux machine, you have a Windows machine, you have a Mac machine, or something like that, right? So similarly, VM is nothing but a where we are creating some machine, right? So that's where we can select different machine types. Okay. So it's basically template based types that Google Cloud has created, and we can choose whatever we want, right? So these are, that is nothing but the machine type. So when you create a VM, I'm going to show you on the console in a while. So when you go on a console and try to create a VM, right, that time it automatically there'll be one select area, where you have to select the different machine types, right? So there could be there are types basically. So types could be predefined, right? Predefined means Google Cloud has them created for uh, general use, right? And then you have again custom machine type. You can choose the ratio and CPU and RAM as well, right? So you get to choose how much CPU you want, how much RAM you want. If that is not present in a predefined template list, right, you also have that option to go for the custom machine type, right? So configuration wise, if you feel that okay, so I mean the Google Cloud provided or the predefined types are not fitting my particular configuration need, then you can go for the custom machine type as well. Okay. So but the very important thing is 90 to 95%, I would say. Okay. Even more than that of the use cases will be covered here. Okay, and we'll be using these only for the demo purposes, right? And they have so much variety. I'll show you on the console again, but they have so many options in predefined that you won't even need custom machine types. Because custom machine types, let's say you had in predefined you have options like for uh, two two virtual CPU, you want 1 GB RAM, or you want 2 GB RAM, you want 4 GB RAM, you want 8 GB RAM, right? All these are options are there. If you want same CPU but more RAM, you have all these options. Most of them will be covered for your any use case. But let's say that after 4 GB you have option for going to 8 GB itself, but you want to go for 6 GB, right? That's where you'll have to choose the CPU as 2 and RAM as 6, right? And that will be your custom. Now, since you are asking uh, Google Cloud to customize the configuration for you, which is not present, this will be expensive than predefined, because they are doing the customization for you. On their RAMs they have some, they have some templates using which they can simply go and create a VM for you using those templates, right? The predefined templates. But if you are asking for a customized configuration, they will have to you know customize for your particular need, for your specific need. And that's where the some charges will be added. And custom machine types would be typically a little expensive than the predefined one. But so far I have seen in so many projects in Google Cloud that people never go for the custom machine types, but we do have the option. Okay, so that's the point I wanted to cover. You can say cheaper, right? You can choose, this is the point about this. Okay, and yep. So I think again now the machine type is basically there are different types of. I mean, you might have been aware already about the CPU platforms, right? So it is based on the CPU platforms. I forgot to mention that point. So CPU platform means like some of the, you might be already aware that there are different types of processor. AMD is one of the company who makes the processors. Intel is a very well-known company that makes the chipsets, right? So the processors. So based on types of Intel, based on the types of AMD, or based on some other companies which makes the chipsets for your laptop, right? So based on that platform these machine types are created, and within the machine types you have multiple other options to choose. You want 2 GB of RAM, you want 4 GB of RAM, or how much CPU and RAM you want, that those options are also there. Now based on different options, they are bundled together. Okay, different machine types are grouped together, and that is called as machine family. There is nothing much to be discussed on machine family. It's just basically a grouping of different machine types, or a related machine types into one particular category, that is machine type. Okay, so let's go on the console and let's see. I don't need that. Let me log in. Okay, so you can go to VMs from here. Also you can just type VMs and go to VM instances, right? You can go from here also, right? You can go to compute engine and VM instances. You can, I have already pinned it so that it will be appearing otherwise for you. You just have to scroll down, go to compute section. From here also you can go, or if you are at the very welcome page, here also you will have somewhere, you will have options for sure. Yeah, you have this one here, so you can go from there also. So once you click on that, if you have not created any of the VMs yet, because we had created in one of the session, that I'm already landing on this page. Otherwise, you will land on that API enablement page where you need to click on enable, and then automatically it will redirect to this particular page. where you can create instances, right? So let me create an instance from here or here, anything is fine. Let me just click on create, and then we'll see all these options that we discussed so far. So the first thing is the instance name. That is the name that you want for your let's say VM, right? So let me say my first VM, right? Anything is fine. So, and on the right side, you see some monthly estimate that it is $28.65 monthly estimate. Okay, and it does not have any sustained discount. And you have by default it has selected two virtual CPU and 4 GB of RAM, right? So we'll see that. So, but after that, you see for labels, just ignore for now. I'll let you know later. It's very simple. You are just tagging your VMs with different names. Maybe like uh, what I can say when you let's say it's like a it's in an event, right? You must have seen that volunteers, right? In different events, right? Volunteers have their own T-shirts which says volunteers, right? So that you can identify them. Labels are nothing but the same. Okay. In then the next one is region and zone. Okay. So let's talk about region and zone a little bit. It is going to be get covered in networking section, but just in brief, I'll tell you. Okay. So just understand there are different locations. Okay. So it's like Asia is one of the location, Europe is one of the location, then US is one of the locations, right? So these are broad locations, Asia, Europe, and US. Under that, you have regions. Okay, so region is like uh, Asia South one, then Asia South two, right? These are nothing but the regions. Okay, and let's say what is Asia South one? It's it is also called as Mumbai. Okay. Now under that region, let's say Asia South 1, what happens is there are multiple zones. Okay. Google Cloud's data center architecture looks like this. Okay. So they have regions, they have zones, and they have something called as edge locations. Okay. But I mean, don't worry. I'm going to cover all these in next uh, networking module as well. But just for the understanding during the VM or compute engine, I'm just covering on a brief. So under a region, right, they have multiple data center 1, data center 2, data center 3, and these are nothing but zone 1. It is also called as zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Okay, so it will look like hyphen a. It will not be zone 1, zone 2, but it will be like Asia South 1 hyphen a hyphen b hyphen c, right? And some of the regions, like US Central, where the I mean your actual VMs will get created in one of them based on whatever you select, right? So there and this data center will be like a big. So this data center will be like there will be big racks of servers, and your VM will be created in one of the rack, right? You can just choose the zone. Let's say you have chosen hyphen C, right? Data center 3 means hyphen C, let's say. So under that, any of the rack, you will get your VMs created over there. Okay. So it may happen that on the same rack that Shrey also created a Shrey's VM, right? Then Shiva's VM is there on the same rack. This is also possible because this is a public cloud, right? We are sharing the racks. I mean, don't go with the assumption that they are accessible to each other, but they are typically created on the same rack from the Google's perspective, right? You still have your data privacy, resource privacy, everything is taken care. But just conceptually, I'm telling, at the rack side, it will be created on the same rack. It might be created on the same rack, right? So that's about the regions and zones. So we can create anything. We can simply select based on the regions. Again, the pricing will change. Let's say now you see here this pricing, right? So let me select a US central zone. My machine will be created in one of the rack in this particular uh, you know particular zone. Now if you see here, from $28 it has reduced to $25, right? So depending upon the regions and their resource availability, right? So the charges or the pricing will be different, right? Now if you see here, there are some machine family, and machine family, there are four machine families: general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, and GPU. Okay, so under that you have different series. So let's say if you go for a general purpose, these are most of the times that you will be creating general purpose, and I'll let you know for which purpose you can select which one. Okay, that's what is this discussion is going to be around now. So general purpose is the uh, let me just open the series first of all, and you see here CPU platforms. This is powered by AMD, some CPU platform, right? And then this is about Intel Cascade Lake, right? Then this is Ampere Ultra ARM CPU platform. So different CPU platforms creates different series within the particular machine family, right? Then under that particular machine family, I mean the very old machine family is N1, that is Intel Skylake, and that is the cheapest one. Let's select one of them just for understanding. And under that, if you see machine type, so now this is what we were talking about, the machine type. If you see here, N1 standard one, what does that mean? It is going to give you one virtual CPU and 3.75 GB of RAM. Okay, a very small one. But as I told you, you have so much flexibility, right? The very first point that we said, how desktop or laptop is different than VM, right? You can go for 0.25 or one shared core also. So if one CPU, one virtual CPU is made up of quad core, four cores are there, you can even run your VM on a single core, okay, with just 600 MB of RAM. So that small you can go. It's a micro, F1 micro, right? So if I select that one, my pricing will be way cheaper, right? $4. Just a minute, give me a minute. Sorry about that. So if I go for the F1 micro, for my monthly estimate, it will be just less, just a little lesser than $5 itself, right? So it will be like 1 cent per hour. So it is that cheap, and I'm getting some discounts also on that, right? So this is all about the machine types. You can choose, let's say one CPU 3.75 GB, two CPU 7.5 GB, four CPU, eight CPU, and these predefined options are there. There are so many options under one machine type itself. Then if you go to another series, let's say for another one, if you want N2, under N2 also there will be a lot of other options that you will get, right? Then you still have, if you don't like any of this series, you can still go for compute optimize. So what is compute optimize? Compute optimize is CPU intensive. So the, let's say there are some use cases where you need higher CPU performances, like some heavy softwares, right? Maybe, or some gaming web servers. You are creating a gaming server, right? And you are supposed to host a gaming server on that. So that particular server might need a lot of CPU power, and that's where you go for the compute optimize. So compute optimize is again one of the other category or the family, under which there will be multiple other series, and for each series again you will have multiple options to choose from, right? So depending upon your need, your business need, you will choose different family, and according to that particular family, you get to choose series and the different machine types under that family, right? Then memory optimize is nothing but the more focus is on the RAM. So RAM intensive. So the RAM intensive means RAM is, of course, it is way expensive than compared to the processor, right? So the RAM will be more. If you see here, you have M1 and M2 series, and under M2, if you see here, it start with so much of CPU power, and if you see here, 5.75 TB of RAM. So these are memory intensive CPU machine types or the templates. These are just templates using which, if you select this and create a VM, Google Cloud will give that much of the RAM and all, I mean, that configurations to you based on that template. So if you see here, the basic starts with 1.4 TB of RAM, right? So it's huge RAM intensive machines. The best suitable are for, let's say, banking infrastructure, or somewhere where you are doing some analytical stuff, right? So like, if you are creating, um, I mean, there are other options also like Dataproc. So or let's say Hadoop or a Spark cluster for you are creating, right? So if you want a separate VM to add to that manually, maybe there is another option called as Dataproc, which gives you the same thing. But if there is any other need where you need some high memory requirement or high RAM requirements, right? So that time you can go for the memory optimized templates. Finally, we have GPU. This anyone who loves gaming, right? They already might be aware about this graphical processing unit, that is GPU, right? So what happens is like, something like either like gaming UI, or maybe what I can say, some like National Geographic or Discovery channels, right? They have so much high definition rendering that they need, right? So much detailing that they need in their videos while processing or rendering. That's where you can do all that stuff on a machine which is attached with a GPU, right? And this is again very costly, and depending upon the GPU type that you select, you can attach different GPUs, right? And another one is, let's say, now in this one, these are the predefined ones that we were talking about, right? I also mentioned one more was the custom one, right? If you still feel that no, I mean, Google Cloud's template does not fit my requirement, that's where you just choose the which type of platform that you need, let's say N1, and then you go for the custom. Under machine type, you go for the custom ones. If you select the custom, you get to choose what do you want. So let's say I say, I want two virtual CPU and I want 6 GB of RAM. So as I said, this will be higher on the cost because this template does not exist, and you are explicitly asking Google Cloud to assign that particular configuration to you, right? That's where they will charge you more. But as I said, also 95 to 90 to 95% of your use cases will be for sure will be covered under any of these as itself, right? And you can choose different series also. So let's go ahead and select N1. Let me create a very small F1 micro machine for now. Region I have selected US Central C, and then go for just ignore these for now. Then the next one is the disk, boot disk options, right? So by default, if you see here the name, and it's a new balanced persistent disk, 10 GB of RAM, license is free, and the image which is being used is a Debian image. So my machine will be a Debian machine, Debian OS. Okay. So if I want to change this, so I just need to click on change, and this particular window will appear. So if you see here, there are some public images, custom images, snapshots, and existing disks, archive snapshots, something like that. So if you go to the public image, so you can choose different OS, Linux OS, and somebody was asking a Windows question, right? So Windows Server also you can create Ubuntu, Ubuntu Pros, SUSE Linux, Rocky Linux, OpenSUSE, Fedora, Debian, CentOS. You can choose a different variety. So let me stick with that one itself, and then under version you can also select different versions. And now if you see here, the boot disk, right? So boot disk is nothing but on which the OS is going to get installed, right? So when you have a you have a laptop, right? So you have some C drive, right? It might be an SSD disk, or it might be an old hard drive, right? HDD disk, right? So it doesn't matter, but it needs a disk on which a Windows will be written. Windows will be nothing but it will be installed like a software, right? The very first Windows that you boot, right? This runs like a software for this particular machine, for this particular laptop, right? Similarly, you need a disk needs to be attached to that particular VM on which the OS will be installed, this Debian OS. So if you see this, we have multiple options to select from. So let me cover these four types first, and along that we'll go ahead. So this is called as boot disk options. So what was, let me just check: balance, extreme, SSD, standard. Okay, the standard is the uh, very basic one. So let's start with standard, easy to understand. Standard PD, persistent disk. Okay, or let me write disk PD. Okay, then we have balanced, which is default. By default it was selected, right? Balanced PD, then SSD PD. Okay, and then what was the last one? Extreme, right? Okay, extreme persistent disk. So yeah, just let me take a sip of water. Okay, so the OS options we already seen. Now let's talk about the persistent disk, right? So as I said, boot disk here. The just give me a minute. Let me just do this. Okay, so OS uh, will be installed here, right? And I mean, it will be booted from this particular disk, your machine. So now talking about the standard persistent disk and the other three, right? So standard persistent disk is nothing but your HDD. Okay, hard disk drive, hard disk drive. So if you are aware, most of the desktops or laptops has HDD, and now there is a new types of disk that is also called as SSD. These are way expensive than HDDs, right? So other than this particular standard one, rest of them are SSDs. These are all SSDs. These are also called as solid state drive, I think. Yeah, solid state drive. Solid state drives are way faster in IO operations. So if you have, my machine is installed on SSD in my laptop, the one which I'm working upon, right? So the Windows will boot within 10 seconds, right? That is how fast your Windows will boot. So depending upon your need, you can choose as SSD or SDD option. Okay, This is the cheapest one, of course. Okay, and you can create regional or zonal. Okay, so you can create regional and zonal means, so when you selected, now we are selecting for a VM, we are selecting a particular zone, right? So my VM is called as a zonal resource. Similarly, persistent disk, we are attaching to that VM. Okay, so persistent disk is another resource that you are separately creating, and then you are attaching that to your VM, right? So that particular persistent disk you can create as a regional or zonal. You can also choose, if my VM is deleted, you can also choose an option that my persistent disk should be persisted, right? That's why it is called as persistent disk, right? So even if my Windows or my entire VM is gone down or deleted, I can still have the backup on my persistent disk. Okay, so you can choose regional, zonal, right? uh, Zonal or regional level. So if you choose regional persistent disk, you can create a VM in any of the zone, and if you under that region, right? And if you choose a zonal persistent disk, you have to attach that to the VM in the same zone, right? I hope that point is clear. Now on the balanced PD, how it is different is, it's a, first of all, the difference is it is a solid state drive. So this will be, I can say this will be faster and expensive than standard. And the balance between performance and cost. So the performance and the cost of that persistent disk will be in a balanced way. Okay. So that is the difference. Then uh, SSD persistent disk is again solid state drive, but this is meant for high performance. Okay, they call it as SSD-PDI, right? Let me just double check. Yeah, all of these, all of the other ones, I mean, these first three are all SSDs only, but there is a separate category, SSD persistent disk. So it is basically meant for high performance databases. So if you have any uh, databases that you want to host on this particular VM, and you want, uh, let's say you have a bigger VM, right, which is CPU intensive, and that needs very fast and very good performance on the database side that you are hosting on this particular VM, then you can choose a persistent disk as SSD, and that will be, the IO operations will be, IO ops will be higher, but this will be again expensive than the balanced. Okay, then the next one is the extreme persistent disk. This is again a solid state drive, and also one more point, that this is again can be regional or zonal. This also can be regional, zonal, but the extreme PD only zonal possible. Okay, so this can be only attached to the VM from the same zone. Okay, and this is, as the name suggests, it is meant for extreme use. So base size itself, I think, starts from 500 GB. If you see here, extreme, yeah, it starts with 500 GB, and this will give you these many IO operations per second. Okay, 10,000 operations per second. It can go to 60,000 operations per second as well. So it is very much extreme case. um, so depending upon your, let's say you need very IOPS intensive operations that you want to do, then you can go, okay, for the extreme PT. So for now we'll go with the balanced one. Okay, that's okay for us, and we'll go with the 10 GB of size. Okay, and we'll say select. Okay, one more thing I forgot to tell you on that particular page is, this is what we have discussed about the image and the disks, right? Similarly, you have option for custom images also. So, and in custom images, I don't have any images for now, but we can have our own images also. Maybe you can create, let's say you have an on-premise, right? And you want to use the same image. You can import that image image into GCP, and you can create your VM using the same image also. So image means, I mean, I'm going to cover what is image. That's why I just hold it for now. Public image, I just explain you just using this particular uh, OS. This only has a OS, but in custom or in basically an image is nothing but the entire OS along with some other configurations or some other softwares also you can install, and then you can create an image. So you might have seen, right, when you are allocated to a project, right, you get a VM. Maybe if any one of you knows about Citrix, right, you get a Citrix VM in which you log in, and it has all the basic softwares. So what happens is they have an image. Using that image, they just build a new VM and they assign it to you or any other new member, right? So what happens is, along with the OS, all these softwares are also built in. All those configurations, the path, the class path, and I mean, I'm talking about some environment variables level as well. So all these configurations, some parameters, if you are setting up everywhere, so all these are also can be bundled into one single thing, that is nothing but your image in single, in simple layman term. So you can boot directly a VM from that image, and all those things will be automatically set. Snapshots, just ignore this for a while. And existing disk, if you have another existing disk, then you can attach that to this particular VM. So if you want another other persistent disk that is already existing, you can attach that as well. Okay, so these are some of the options. Then the next one is the service account. We already discussed. This is the default service account with which we are going to create a VM, and whatever the permissions that this particular service account has on IAM page, that will be the same permissions that my VM will have, right? This is the owner. Maybe you can say that this is the owner of my VM. The same permissions will be with my VM as well. Then you have something called as access scopes. So access scopes, basically there are three options. Default access, if you just keep an, yeah, so this question box will tell you this is going to give you read only access on storage and service, right? Service management. And write access on logging. Stackdriver logging is nothing but the logging that I told you, right? There is a different service where we have all the logs flowing at one central place, right? That is nothing but Stackdriver logging. Then we have monitoring. Monitoring is like creating charts and dashboards like that. And there are some write accesses, some read accesses that you are getting with default access scopes. If you allow full access to all the cloud APIs, so this VM will be able to do everything. So it will be able to, I mean, provided that this service account has a permission, this particular VM will have write access to all of them. And this will be again dependent on what access you have on the service account, of course. And then if you choose, you want to access particular things. So if you want this VM to connect to BigQuery, you want to this VM to connect to Bigtable, Bigtable data, Bigtable admin, data store. All these are different services of Google Cloud. Based on what you want this VM to communicate with, you can select selective ones. You can go for the full, you can go for the default, right? For now, I mean, this is the very first VM that we are creating. I'm just creating with default things. Another one is the firewall. So not just these two firewalls, we can create many firewall, I mean, different firewall rules based on our need, which we are going to cover in a networking section. But VM page gives you two options by default here itself on the VM creation page, that you can allow HTTP traffic or you want to allow HTTPS traffic, so secure traffic. So you need these options only when you are hosting any website on this particular VM. This VM is nothing but a Linux box, right? On this Linux box, if you are hosting or installing any website, then only you want people to click on that website link and open the, I mean, you want to expose that as that, what I can say, the website to public internet, then only you need these particular options. Okay. For now, I don't even need that. And let's say in advanced option, we have multiple other options. So networking, right? So in networking, I can select different options. For now, don't go into details in networking sections. I'm going to cover all these anyways. You just see here, I'm just selecting a default network. Okay. And this is also a part of networking itself, but just keep an eye on this particular thing. We are going to cover in the next session next week on networking, while what is this default. And so let me choose a default network for now. And under that, let me just check options. Okay, disk, additional disk you can attach if you have any additional persistent disk. And under security, you have other options like shielded VM, right? This is one of the topic that I'm going to cover separately, but let's keep it as it is for now, and I'll come back to this one. Then under management, you have all these options again. So here, if you see here, the automation, the startup script, right? So if you can write some shell command over here, and what happens is when you attempt to create a VM, this script will be executed as well. So I can write some Linux commands that, okay, so once my VM is created, I want Python to be installed, I want Java to be installed on this. So I can write those commands. It's like sudo. If you are coming from a Linux background, it might make more sense to you. Otherwise, it's okay. So I can say Python 3, right? So apt-get install is just a command to install something, and I'm saying Python 3 is to be installed. So this is one of the command. So what will happen is this VM will be created and this command will be executed on that VM automatically, right? Because this is a startup script. Okay. Then metadata, you can just give additional metadata to your VM. And then the availability policy, right? So if you see here the VM provisioning model that we discussed yesterday, a spot VM versus a standard VM. Standard VM is nothing but you choose when you want to delete, that time only it will be deleted, whereas in spot you get a lot of discount. May not be on N1 machine. Let's see. Yeah, here also we got some discount, right? From 4.88 it reduced to 3.56, but the bigger you go with the size, the discount will be more, of course. So what happens is for spot VM, we already discussed yesterday, right? I think last point we discussed was that only, right? We discussed about this. So basically, spot VM is nothing but a preemptible VM that we are going to create, right? Spot to get discounted preemptible VM. Otherwise, choose stick to standard. Then what do we have other than that? You have some encryption keys if you want, that's okay. And also let me make it as a standard, just a normal VM that I'm going to create. Okay, there's one more option that I wanted to check. Where is that? Networking. Okay. Okay, so if I expand the network, I get to choose internal IP and external IP. Okay. So what is internal IP and external IP? Internal IP is the IP address. Now I'm not going to see, that's what I've been telling from the first session, that I'm not going to teach what is IP address. Okay. What I can teach you is how it is implemented in GCP for a VM, right? So VM can be attached with two types of IP addresses. It can be an internal IP address, it can be an external IP address. One of them is internal, and you can have, let's say, let me explain you in short. So what happens is this is the VM. It can have two IP addresses, IP1 and IP2. This is internal, this is external. What happens is if I create a VM, right, and I want you guys to access my VM, right? So somebody from your side, right? So let's say Pravesh, right? I want Pravesh to access my VM. What I can do, I can give him my external IP. He just put it on the web browser. Not web browser always. If I have HTTP firewall rule, then only he'll be able to access using HTTP, because web browser uses HTTP, correct? So that way, this particular IP address x.x.x.x, let me say, right, that will be accessible via external IP, right, my VM. But let's say I have another VM. This is my VM itself, right? Belongs to Harshal in the same project, let's say, right? And this is also VM1. This is also Harshal in my same project. If I want them to communicate to each other without internet, when I say without internet, it is not going to post anything on the public internet, because this is going to post everything via public internet, right? So if I don't want, I can use the internal IP addresses to communicate with different services. This is the recommended practice within your project. You want to use internal IP addresses for any internal communication between your resources, right? So if you have multiple VMs, they want to talk to each other, they want to communicate with each other, they want to share any data with each other, you want to use internal ones, internal IP addresses, right? So these are the two options that you get. So internal IP address ephemeral is nothing but automatically it will assign, also when the VM is gone, that IP address will also be I mean, next time if you create a same VM, it will have another IP address, not the same exact IP address. And you can choose the custom also, that will be like a static IP address. But for static IP address, the charges will be separate. We'll cover that in networking, one of the session is there. And again, external is again ephemeral. So let me keep ephemeral for now here, and then let me just check whether, okay, one more thing I wanted to, before I just clicked on create, there was a button. Okay, let me show you again. Now this VM is getting created. Meanwhile, what I wanted to show you is, once I selected all those options on a VM page, right, at the very bottom I was having this particular option, equivalent command line. So if I open that, oh no, not this one. This is going to create this one. Okay. So if you click on this command line, it is giving me a nicely created, or I mean ready to use gcloud command itself, right? So gcloud compute instances create. This is going to create a VM with this particular name, and in this particular project, hyphen project, the project name, hyphen zone, the zone name, right? I mean, I have created on a I mean, open the new page, that's why it is coming with the default options. Machine type is E2 medium. We had created F1 micro, right? So if I go back to the VM instance pages, my VM will be would have been created. So never mind, I can. So this is the VM that we have created, and you see here, let me open that, right? You see some basic details, right? All the details that we have selected here, right? You can see all those things here. It also tells you which image it is using, right? This is again a public image, or the predefined machine type image that it is using. Then on the details page outside, you can see here internal IP address and external IP address. Using this external IP address, I can open that in a browser, right? Right now I don't have any website hosted, right? So it won't show anything. Okay, but that's how you can create a VM simply. The same way you can do using this activate cloud shell. We had seen, right? We had ran some commands, gsutil gcloud in uh, class number 2, I think, right? So this is going to give me a terminal, a CLI terminal, on which I can fire gcloud commands, right? So the command that I said, right, on the create instance page, you can get gcloud command. For the same configuration, you can copy the equivalent gcloud command, right? So if I need to write it again, it will be like gcloud compute instances create. This is the command. So what it says is, if I say instances list, let me try that out. I just need to authorize it once. So I just fired a list command. So what I'm saying is, gcloud, go to my compute instances and list me the instances. So I have only one instance. Instance is nothing but my VM. So it is giving me the details of that. I want to create a new one, so I'll say create, and then I need to give some parameters. So I'm saying my second VM, right? And then I need to give zone. So let's say I create in central. This is in US Central C. Let me create that in US Central 1 hyphen A. Okay, another zone. Then hyphen hyphen machine type I need to give. I think not hyphen here, type, and N1 standard. I'm giving another one. Okay, standard hyphen 1. We had created F1 micro. You remember? F1 micro was very small machine. This is little bigger machine, N1 standard 1. And let me say network interface. No address. Okay, let's see what happens. So this is another way. See, a VM has been created, another VM, a second VM. Now let me refresh this particular page, and I should see my second VM over here. My second VM without an external IP address. Why? Because I had given this one. I don't want a network interface. I don't want any address on a network interface. So it is not going to get exposed. This is my, let's say you can say a private VM, right? It just has a private IP. This is also called as private IP and public IP. Internal or external is nothing but this is private, this is public. So it has a private IP, but it does not have any public IP. So this VM cannot be accessible from outside. Okay, we have different ways, other ways also to access, but that will be the part to discuss in networking section, right? So that's how you can create the VM VMs. Again, if I do compute list, now it will show me two of them. Now it will show me two of them. One is my second VM, one is my first VM, right? I have some other commands also, right? Projects list. So I can switch between the projects if I just like the way from here we can choose and select different projects. Similarly, I can switch between the projects, but it is anyways automatically set to my this project itself. This is the project ID of the same project. That's why I did not have to give any hyphen hyphen project over here. Otherwise, I can provide hyphen hyphen project and my project ID. Then that VM will be created in that particular project. Okay, any questions until here? Else it's let me take the questions. I think I have some questions, and then we'll break for 6 or 7 minutes. Okay, let me take the questions. Okay. Hi Harshal. Shrey has a question. Will be cover BigQuery in the session for GCP storage? Not GCP storage, but yes, BigQuery I'll cover in big data analytics. Then for practice in general, which region or zone to be used? You can select anything. For practice, you can select wherever you find cheaper one, go for that. I personally feel US Central one is the cheapest one. So you can go for US Central one. But so what happens sometimes is because we have a free tier account, right? So they know that this is a free tier account. They have certain, and if you keep on creating the resources in Central one or any specific region itself, eventually what will happen is they will say that your quota or something like that on this particular region has been exhausted, right? So create anywhere else also, that's fine. $300 credit is way enough if you just manage that correctly, and by end of every demo or by end of every day You just delete the VM. Make sure that you delete the VMs, or you just create very small VMs. Don't create N1 standard one machines that I have just created. Just go with F1 micro. That will be okay for your demos. Okay, so what is the persistent disk? Some share has a question. I think that I have already covered, right? Persistent disk is just like your hard disk that you have on which you are writing a OS, and you are also writing your data, right? So if you create any file, so when VM is created, what happens is this VM has installed a Linux machine, right? So Linux OS has been written somewhere. Written means it is installed somewhere. So that needs a persistent disk, and the types I have already discussed. Also, BigQuery tables, views, writing routines, transportation from dev to prod. No, no, no. We are not going to go in so much details. We are going to focus on what is required for your certification. But writing routines or writing stored procedures, I understand what you are coming from, Shay. But writing stored procedures or routines, that we are not going to cover. But yes, we are going to create tables. We are going to create views, or we are going to create data sets. All those things will be covered, and basic query writing, how to write a query, how to execute the query, how to see the logs for the query. All those things I'm going to cover in BigQuery. Okay, Shiva has a question. What is regional and zonal under disk? Under disk. So regional and zonal is nothing but I showed you, right? Let's say this VM belongs to this zone. So as I said, right, on this particular diagram. So under Mumbai, let's say Mumbai is nothing but Asia South 1. Okay, Google Cloud does not refer that as a Mumbai location, Mumbai data center. Okay, it talks about Asia South 1 because these data centers are, typically secret locations, right? They don't expose those data centers. You even don't know where it is located. Maybe it is around somewhere in Mumbai, within Mumbai, somewhere, I don't know. Nobody knows. They don't have any address of that, right? So Asia South 1, that means Mumbai data center, that within that particular data center, they have three data centers. Okay, so within that premise they have data centers 1, 2, and 3. That is also called as zones. So a region is nothing but a group of zones. Zone is the basic where physical building where you have multiple racks, right? Let me see if I have a diagram. I think I had a diagram. Let me show you how it looks like. Okay, so this looks like this. Okay, one data center internally will look like this. Okay, and then you have so much wiring, cabling, your persistent disk, and RAMs and everything is installed. And when you create a VM, it will be that particular configuration will be assigned from one of them randomly, right? I hope you got the point of this particular zonal and regional. Now when you select a resource as regional, that means any of the other machine. See, persistent disk, you are attaching to a VM, right? You are attaching a persistent, you have a VM and you have a persistent disk. Persistent disk, just assume this as a separate resource, right? So this is a PD, this is PD, and this is PD. So once you have created a regional one, so let's say you have, and the zones that I discussed about this three, right? These are not called as zone. These are called as hyphen A, hyphen B, hyphen C, right? So let's say this particular VM is in hyphen A and this is hyphen C, right? So if your persistent is regional, so you can attach this here and here both, because this is a regional one, and regional resource can be attached to any zonal resource. But if this is you created as a zonal, this particular persistent disk, another one, so let's say this is created in zonal, so it will ask you which zone, right? While creating. So if you have created that for hyphen A, you can attach only to hyphen A related VM, not to the hyphen C related VM. So that's how the regional and zonal resources. It's basically categorization of your resource. When you create a VM, that VM is always a zonal resource. You cannot create a VM as a regional resource because it's a mandatory field to select which zone in which zone you want to create this particular VM. So it's a zonal resource. Similarly, uh, persistent disk can be zonal, can be regional. I hope I answered your question, Siva. Google Cloud data prep, data flow will be covered in topics as well, please, in our training. Yes, Shreya, that will be covered. Data flow, PubSub, data, not data prep. Okay. See, I am going to cover what all things are required in your architect certification, but I'm also going to cover, if time permits, I am going to cover some other topics which are good uh, for you to understand. Okay. But first of all, my priority will be to cover whatever is there in the syllabus. Pravesh has a question. How will we attach new partition if we want separate partition for web hosting? So on partition. So basically the partitions means here you can't create Windows partitions is a concept of Windows machine, right? Most of the times if you go in any project, 99% of the times you will be using Linux VMs, because Linux machines are way faster than Windows machines. So if you want multiple partitions, what you can do is you can attach multiple disks, and I'll show you. This is one of the in one of the demo today, that we can attach multiple disks to the same existing VM. That will be your separate partition on, and on that you can host your web application. Shiva, what is the default username and password for this Linux machine? Okay, so for uh, basically, if you see here, there is a button, right? SSH. So if I SSH into this one, what will happen is, with my this ID, with my this particular ID, it will create a user, because it has access to this particular VM, right? I have created this VM. Similarly, if I go to this SSH console, it will, what it is doing is, it is creating my username, and it is going to use my SSH key. It is not going to get, I'm not going to get that access. Okay. So who am I? I am my this account, right? So I am automatically logged in into my VM using my ID. It's not using username and password. It is using SSH keys or RSA keys. I'll show you, if time permits, I'll show you that as well. If um, s- some of you guys have been using Putty or PuttyGen kind of softwares, we can connect to this VM from Putty also. Okay, but for that we'll have to do some setups, and I mean, for that, if we have some time today, I'll show you, or maybe towards end I'll show you. That's not really required. You can do all the stuff from clicking on SSH and create go into SSH window. It's the same window. I can show you, right? It's my home directory that also it has created, right? And if I go in this particular VM, if I go into that particular VM, let me open this in another one, Cloud Shell, and then we'll close it from here. Okay, close. Okay, so if you go here and somewhere it is, let me check. Yeah. So if you go to this particular VM and just open the logs, right? Open the logs, and I'm just searching for this. So if you see here, once I clicked on SSH, it started creating that user, and it has updated the keys, and using that, it allowed me to connect to that particular VM from SSH console. Okay. Can we get gcloud command list? I'll have to work on that, Shiva. But it's very easy. I mean, one more thing I can tell you is, you can go to gcloud command for compute instance. I want you guys to do some hands-on. because I mean, don't expect me to give you everything on the plate, you know. So if you click on that, go to any documentation, you will see here, right? So G Cloud Compute Instance, this is instance template. So go to instances, go to instances and expand this. Go here, click on create, right under instances. It will give you the command G Cloud Compute Instances create. Give the instance name that we had. Now, if you compare this with what we ran, right? Simple. Oh, it is not scrolling up. Come on. Yeah. So if you compare with this one, right? Gcloud compute instances create, then the name, then the hyphen hyphen zone. So if you compare that, you have all those options. So you have so many other options also. You can do everything that you are doing via console. I mean UI. You can do all those stuff here, right? This one, right? So network interface, what can be the property value? Just click on that. It will take you to this one. So it can have address, it can have some other options also, or if you put no address, it will have, so no address. So it will be no external IP, right? So just read out all these things. I want you guys to go through these things. Okay. So unless if I give you everything spoon feeding, right? It will be just me teaching you, you don't understand and you will forget all these things. uh Sorry, I think I lost somewhere in your questions. What is the default? Okay, so this G command is a separate GCP command related to Linux. Shabby has a question. So G cloud command is one of the, that's because the cloud shell comes along with another software, right, called as cloud SDK. It is pre-installed. That's why you can write G cloud command in a normal Linux VM. If you have other than GCP, right, outside GCP, if you have any on-premise on that, gcloud commands will not work. Okay, gcloud is the installation that comes along with this particular cloud shell. Is it necessary to deploy containers while creating VM? No, 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 no. It's not required. Container is another technology. Containerization and is another technology that we are going to cover in Google Kubernetes engine. Okay, so it's not necessary. What should be the region in my company's business runs in India? You can, depends, Pravesh. Your good question, that you have your business running in India. So if you mean that your customer base is also in India, it is best to use the India region. Any different region or in India that you can. It doesn't mean that if you select a Mumbai region, it doesn't mean that Chennai people cannot access the resource or the VM or the website that you have hosted in Mumbai VM, right? Doesn't mean that way. It's just that the resource or that VM is created in that data center which is located in Mumbai. Okay, it doesn't mean that. But the thing is that the farther you go, the latency will be more. So if you access the same VM from London, the latency will be little higher, right? So there'll be a little more slowness in your website. That's where you have multi-regional resource also, and you have some other way. I mean, for website hosting, you don't really create a single VM. You have other ways. Okay, in load balancing and networking, we'll see that. But yeah, good question. Dinanath, how we know which zone is right for me? How will be helpful for my project? Otherwise, I can always go on the cheaper region. No, 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 not always on the go on the cheaper region or zone. It is basically the customer where you need to know for your project where is that particular customer base is, or from where this traffic is going to come in, right? Depending upon that, you can choose your VM. And typically, VM is just a basic component. VM itself, you won't create a single VM and put your website on top of that single VM, right? Because I told you, right, we need some auto scaling. We need more VMs to automatically getting added and getting removed, right? So it's not just VM is just a basic component. In typical enterprise level application, you don't host the website on single VM. You basically host it on a pool of VMs, and you put some auto scaler, some load balancers. We'll see all these things in networking, and we'll on action we'll see how the new machines are getting added, and machines are getting deleted if there is no spike. Okay, so all those things we are going to cover. So you need to know, as a architect of your project, you will have to understand from clients, um, what is the customer base, in which regions do I need to serve the traffic, right? And based on that you select. Then as a question again, what are the mandatory fields without which the VMs cannot be created? Good question. So let me see here in the documentation, it should be clear maybe. Let's try it out. I think this is not required, and let's do one thing, and let's try to create. So it is asking me for the zone. So zone is a um, mandatory field. If I say so, but it has some default value also. So it is asking me, do you mean that I need to create a VM in this one? I said no. So it is asking me, it has posted all the 50 or even 53 more are there, I think, right? Did not print 53. So total 103 regions, those are there. I need to select one of them. So zone is one again. Let me let me give it a name, give it a zone and try. Third, I think it has created. So only the zone is mandatory field. Rest of them, it's okay. You can create without that as well. Just a name and zone. That's it. I think that answers your question, Gana. Thank you so much. How to understand that key? How to download that key? Okay, so I'll tell you. That's what I said, right? If you want, if time permits, there are so many questions because this seems to be a big batch. So there are so many questions I'm need to answer, right? So if time permits, I'll show you how to connect via putty using that key. We'll download that key. Is it possible to use the VM from different regions for a single application? Yes. VM is just the, I mean, the region or the zone that we are selecting, that is just for creating the VM. Okay, don't look at that from accessibility perspective, right? I can sit in London and use the India VM also. Okay, I can hit that and I can reach to that VM also. It is just that where that VM configurations, the actual RAM and CPU, from where it has been allocated, that's the zone basically it is all about, right? Don't think that is it accessible from here and there, right? So it is accessible throughout the entire globe. I hope that answers all the questions that I have on my question box. So let's take 6 minutes of break. 8:20 will resume. Okay. Okay. Let me start a timer. Okay then. Yeah. See you after 6 minutes. At 8:20 we'll start. Okay, I am back. Hmm, can I show the bottom notes about SSD? Yeah. Okay. So as a request, I am already uploading the rough notes that we are actually creating, right? So by end of the day, not after end of the day, end of the session itself, you will get all. I'll extract that this as a PDF and will give it to you guys. So don't worry about the this one. Just focus the attention, have attention on what I'm teaching you rather than taking notes all the time. And I would encourage that you uh, try out all these things. Okay, unless you try, it will be harder and harder to understand later point of time. So next one is VM life cycle. Let me just get the things ready by the time people are back. I think we have a diagram. Yep, this one. I'll put that diagram. Okay. Okay, 20 we have it already. Okay. Okay. So time's up and we'll get started with the next topic, that is virtual machines life cycle. So now, since you now know how we created a VM, right? Let's say if you go to the VM, we just clicked on create instance. We selected few options on create instance page, and then we hit on create, right? So what happens behind the scene or behind the entire life cycle of a particular VM, that we will check. We will see those things, right? So the first thing is provisioning. Okay, let me take a red pen. So this is the first stage, that is provisioning. So what is provisioning is basically you fill the form and then you hit on create, right? So what happens is Google Cloud gets a request from your create button, right? And Google Cloud tries to check for those resources because that resource or the needs to be there. I mean, again, Google Cloud or any other public cloud is also, they have so much capacity for the resources that it doesn't happen that they don't have the capacity for a given zone or something, but on which rack it has to be assigned, on which particular zone it has been asked, all these and whether the resources are there or not. So all these things are being taken care in the backend, right? Let me take the type it itself so that it will be easy for you to copy paste later if you want from the PDFs that will attach. So provisioning will be basically to when we fill the form and hit create, right? So resources are being allocated. So the VMs has not been started yet, or it has not been configured yet. Just the resources are being allocated. That is the state where it is called provisioning state, right? That your resources are getting provisioned or your VM is getting provisioned. The next one is staging. So when I say resources, so if you see here, so your CPU, your RAM, your persistent disk that you have asked, your additional disk if you attach anything, all these resources are created or being allocated to your VM. That is the provisioning state that we are talking about, right? So all these resources. Now the next one is staging. Staging. Staging also means it is resources are acquired. Okay, resources are acquired, but the VM is getting first boot. The very first boot that VM is creating, VM is installing the that OS which you have selected and all those things, right? So on and networking related things, right? The system image is nothing but your OS is getting installed. IP address and internal IP address, external IP address, we have already understood this part, right? So these internal and external IP addresses are also given directly by Google Cloud for your VM, right? No two different VMs will have the same IP address at any point of time, right? It's like an address, right? So all these allocations, all these things are also being taken care by Google Cloud in a staging phase. So that is the phase or the state of your VM's life cycle where it is getting ready for the first boot, right? And the resources are already acquired from Google Cloud for your for your VM, right? So that is about the staging. Now the third one comes as running, right? So once everything is done, boot is also done, you have a running state where VM is up and running. This is where the first time you can log in, and VM will also automatically, before it assigns to you, it will run startup script also, right? And now here you can do multiple stuff, right? Now since you can SSH into this machine now, right? And then you can do you can either uh, you know do a lot of stuff. I mean, create files. You can even create snapshot, we'll see that. Create what I can say, or migrate to other region or zone. You can update metadata of your Linux file. You can create new files, whatever you want. You can basically you can run different commands on your running VM, right? Because until the this is the very first uh, state other than provisioning and staging, when you get actual access to your machine, that's the your running machine. So in this diagram, one thing was missing was this one, right? The repairing part. So I added this as well because as per the documentation, we also have repairing state. What is repairing state? Repairing. Okay. So repairing is nothing but if there is any internal error, there is any internal error, then Google Cloud puts it into repairing state. Okay. So basically, for any internal error, anything has gone wrong on the VM. Okay, that's where it goes into repairing state. Okay, it is automatic in that sense. Then the next one is the stopping phase. So when you stop a VM, okay, when you go to the console, you select this one and you can stop this particular VM, right? Or maybe let me stop the third one for now. Okay, stopping this particular VM. Maybe it will show you here, right? Being stopped. So it is stopping. Stopping is one of the state in which basically VM is getting stopped. Okay, you can stop the VM to add more CPU or RAM, right? This is the virtual. sorry, not virtual, vertical scaling that we were discussing in one of the session, right? So you can do that. What will happen is while stopping the VM, it will run the shutdown script. Okay, so shutdown script also it will run automatically when you stop the VM, and after that you have terminated. So if you delete a VM, right? Delete the VM. So that is means it is terminated. So terminated means it will not more, it no longer will show up here, right? But in the logs, it will be in a terminated state. So because it will only show you the stopped and the running instances. Once you click on delete, so once you click on delete, that means that deletion is nothing but your termination. That will be a that machine will go off from here and will be considered as a terminated state. Then you have two more of them: restart and resume. Okay, not resume, reset. Restart and resume is same thing. So if you see here, we have stopping and terminated. These are taken care. Now we are talking about this one, right? So restart and reset. So any running machine, if you see here, any running machine can go in reset mode, right? And any terminated or the stopped machine, right? The stopped one machine can again restart it. So I've accidentally deleted that machine, but if the machine is stopped, let's say, let me stop this one. So restart is nothing but simply resuming that. Restart and resume is same. So so restart or resume is nothing but a starting a stopped machine. What will happen? Will IP address change? Hello, am I audible? Sorry. Okay. Yeah, thanks. I thought I lost you guys. So if my VM is stopped and if I start it again or resume it again, okay. So if there is any external IP, I'm talking about the external IP. So if there is any external IP to it, that will get changed. Change, okay. Whereas in case of reset, it is basically you are running reset on your running machine. So what you are doing is running on a reset is performing on a running machine. You are basically trying to wipe the data, wipe all the data. Basically it's like a factory reset of your VM, right? So that will not change the IP address of your machine, okay, but it will wipe all the data. Whereas in resume or restart, it will keep the data on your PD, okay. It will retain the data, it will not uh, remove the entire data, okay. So if there was an external IP, it would have changed. That's okay. So that's how the other two remaining two that we were talking about, the reset and the restart. These are two more states that through which the life cycle of a VM travels through. So any questions on these things? So what happens again in restart is we have stopped the VM, right? So that stopped VM is nothing but your RAM and your CPU has been deallocated. You still see that VM over here. Don't get confused. You still see this VM again. here, and your data, your OS and all the data is written on a persistent disk, right? That's what I said. It is going to retain that data. But your actual resources, the VM, I mean the CPU and the RAM, those will be deallocated and will be assigned to someone else, because that does not store, the CPU does not store any data, RAM does not store any data, right? So that will be deallocated. When you resume back, it will reprovision. Basically what will happen is reprovision the resources. When I say resources, means RAM and CPU, and your data will still be on your persistent disk. So you won't even see when you resume the VM. You will still feel that it's the same VM, but it's basically the resources have been reallocated to you. Okay. Difference between stop and terminate. Terminated is means basically I have deleted the entire VM, right? So that means terminated. Terminated is delete. Sorry, one second. Can we assign static IP to, and so that it will not change restart? Correct, Samshir, exactly. You can do the static IP allocation to your VM, and when you do anything, restart or anything, repair, restart, anything, that static IP will be still stick to your IP address. Sorry, the VM. This it doesn't change any IP address while restart changes. Correct. I'm talking about external ones. It will not delete the VM in restart option. System will only delete the data, not the external storage. No, 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 not as external storage. So any data that is there as part of your machine, what I can say, VM, that will get wiped off. But except the persistent disk, right? Persistent disk is a separate resource that you attach, so that data will not be gone. That will still remain with your uh, with on your persistent disk. Correct. It will not delete the VM. It will not delete the VM. Yes, it is just resetting. It's just like your factory reset on your mobiles that you do, right? It wipes out all the user data, but it still keeps all that data and the OS and Android, if you have Android, so all that data will still be there. Any external application is accessing the application on VM. How do we ensure that there is no issue on restart? Static IP allocation. Yes, static IP allocation is the one using which you, if even if you restart or anything, the static IP, if it is, or let me say, not change the IP address, external IP will change unless it is static. Okay, yes, just give me 10 seconds. Okay, so the next one we'll talk about is the snapshots. Okay, so what is snapshot? Snapshot is basically, in simple words, periodic backup of your PD. Okay, PD is there, but if you want uh, a periodic backup of your snapshot, sorry, a persistent disk, you have a option for something called a snapshot, and it is incremental backup. So let's say on day one you have taken a backup, so it will be relative to that previous backup. On day two, it will be just incremental data. It will identify and it will back up only that particular data, right? It's a global resource. So that means now this is a global resource. It is more than a region, right? So not just a region, you can create a snapshot and use it in other. It is anyway anywhere accessible within the same project. Okay, um, that's that I mean by uh, global resource. But I think mm, yeah, one more thing was life cycle. Life cycle of a snapshot. is separate than a VM. So if the VM dies, doesn't mean that the snapshot is also gone. Snapshot's lifecycle and VM's lifecycle are different. These are independent of each other. So what you are doing is you are creating a snapshot just for a backup, right? So if your VM is gone, or if you want to migrate from one region to another VM, right? So you can create a snapshot, and then you can attach the same snapshot to a new VM in another region, and you will get the all the exact same data on the another VM, right? So this is good for migration. So we'll see that as well in a while. It will not create any disk. It will not create any additional disk. Okay. And snapshots does not contain the OS. These are smaller in size, cheaper, smaller and cheaper than images. Okay. Smaller in size, again faster also, faster in creation, I would say, and cheaper in price than images. What is images? Images we have seen, right? It contains OS, right? So it contains OS and metadata about all the other softwares. If you want, you can create an image out of it, right? One image. It also can have data. So, but image will be a little expensive and slower because it also has a OS installed on that. But whereas in snapshots, you will have just your backup of your data. Just think of this as a pen drive or something, right? Everyone is aware about the pen drive, right? So that way. So let's see. We have a this particular VM, right? So let's SSH into that, and let's try to migrate that into some other region. What is this region? Yes, central. Migrate that to another zone. So it's a zonal resource, right? We have created this VM in US Central 1C, right? So let me just connect to the SSH. Right? If I show you, I don't have any folders over here, right? Let me create one folder, demo migrate maybe, and it's fine. CD demo migrate, and I'm creating a file here. So these are some basic Linux commands. Okay, so for this you have to read out on the internet how what is touch, what is mkdir, right? Then I'm just doing a vi to edit this file. This is sample text for migrating. Basically we are migrating within GCP, okay, not from on-premise, so don't get confused. I'm just trying to migrate my VM from one zone to another zone. So for that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to create some snapshot of this particular VM so that I have a backup, and then I'm going to delete this VM, and then I'm going to create another VM, and I'm going to create that VM from the snapshot, right? So I hope my point is clear. So what I'm going to do is let me open the rough page. What we are going to do, we are going to create a VM1 we have. Let's create a VM2, which is a migrated version of this. Okay. So for this, we are not going to create VM2 directly, but what we are going to do is from VM1, we are going to create a snapshot. So the snapshot will be independent, right? And then I'm going to delete this VM. Now, since I have a snapshot, while creating a VM2, I'm going to attach this snapshot, and then I'm going to create this in another zone, maybe -B. This is in -A, right? So that's how I migrated this VM to some other place. But using this snapshot, I'll still see all those files. So that's why I'm creating some files over here and then I'm going to create a snapshot as a backup of that files, right? I hope that's clear. So this is where I just created one folder. So if I show you, now I have a folder called as demo migrate, and if I go inside the demo migrate folder, I have one file, and if I show you the contents of the file, I have one sample text for migrating written in that particular file. Okay, so sorry. Now let's go to the console. Go to the snapshot we already have in here. Okay, so create snapshot. It can be anything. First VM snapshot. So I can choose my first VM on which I want snapshot to be created. And then I can say multi-regional. So I can move them within any other region, or if I select a region, I can move it within that region to any other zone. Okay. For now, anything is fine. If I select US, so then I can even move it within to a different region altogether, from US Central to US East, US West, like that, right? So that's fine. And consistent, all these things is okay. Let's create one. Okay, I have created in a US region, and my VM is in US Central region, right? So first of all, we'll try to move it to some other region itself. Is this? So if you see here, when I create a VM, right, we had selected a standard disk and a balanced disk, right? Second VM, just ignore this. We had created just with a basic command, but this is the first VM that we had created using GUI, right? We had selected a balanced disk, right? So it has created, it was attached with 10 GB. If you remember the form that we had for create instance, right? So there is one myth that I just wanted to tell you, that when we create a snapshot, right? We have created a snapshot. This snapshot itself is uh, using a 10 GB of disk space, but this is not going to create any additional disk. Okay, it is not going to create any additional disk. Snapshot does not create any additional disks. Okay, so now since we have taken the snapshot, I assume that our all the data will be there on this particular snapshot. Now let's do now what we can do is we can create another instance. I can say migrated first VM, right? Now let's try to, instead of US Central, let's try to create in US West 4, whatever it is. And I can choose anything again from here. I can go with F1 micro. And here, if you see here, we had selected a persistent disk. This time, let's change it to that snapshot, and let's see if that snapshot appears over here. So we had created this snapshot, right? So let's boot up a new machine from this particular snapshot this time, right? And rest of the things doesn't matter. Let's keep it that way. And this is what I had forgot, right? So this is the exact uh, I can say the gcloud command for this particular selection that we had done on this particular page, right? And then let's say create. So now it's creating another VM, and then we'll see whether all our files from first VM will be accessible on second VM or not. Okay, we'll see that. And then you can simply check this and delete that particular VM. So that's how you migrated that VM from one region to another region. Not just the zone, but it's the region itself is different. Okay, so let me refresh. Okay, so let me SSH into the migrated one. Incremental backup should be faster because of some DB. It will take entire backup. Correct. Incremental backup will be faster. Does the snapshot has reference, not the image of the OS? Yes, it has a reference of the OS. Yes, but it does not store the OS itself. Okay. So now if you see here, so the PWD, and then if I do ls, if I see my folder also here, if I go in that folder, I see my files, and if I cat the file, I see the text also. So that's how I basically created another VM in another zone and another region altogether, and I still have all that data there, right? So that's a way using the snapshots. You can either take a backup, that is one advantage that you get. You take a backup. You can also migrate your VMs to another regions, right? I hope that point is clear. So now I can simply go and go to the snapshots. I can delete those snapshots. I can delete these VMs. Make sure you guys, whenever you try to practice, I mean, you practice everything, just delete all those things. I'm going to delete end of the class, so that's okay. So now the next topic that I wanted to cover was uh, sole tenant nodes. Okay, I have a diagram for this, and it's not, it's being used rarely. I have not used in any real-time projects yet, but that's the provision that public clouds, or at least Google Cloud, will have. I need to talk about Google Cloud. So Google Cloud has this provision called as sole tenant node or sole tenancy. Okay, so let's talk about that. So in a single simple layman term, if before I go to any technical details, so in simple words I wanted to explain. So let me explain using a restaurant example. So just assume that you have a restaurant or you go to a restaurant. So what you find in a restaurant typically, maybe this restaurant has a lawn where there are some tables. Okay, then this area is different. Then you have something called as open space, or some, not open space, but we can say uh, common sitting area. Okay, just it has some tables as well over here. Okay, and then you have something called as banquet hall. Okay, I'm interested in telling you what is banquet hall is all about here. So banquet hall is a premise, a separate premise. Okay, it has a gate. Okay, and you have some tables and all those things over here also. Okay, the difference that you have is between, let's say, a common area against the banquet hall is you have a privacy. Okay, the main thing is the privacy. You have privacy, then you have some freedom to choose the size. What I mean by this is you have a freedom to choose the table size, so you can have bigger tables over here. So basically I'm booking a banquet hall just for my private party, and I'm telling the manager, okay, don't allow everyone. I will tell you the invites. Okay, I'll give you the invitee list, and just allow them, right? Allow to them only. Okay, so this is one thing I'm getting. That way I'm getting a privacy, and I'm also getting to choose some size of my table, right? So if I want bigger tables, I want these many small tables, I want one circular table, right? Round table, or whatever, right? So depending upon my configurations, I get to choose what I want, right? So this is nothing but the single tenancy in cloud. Since here, if you compare in the common setting area, there can be uh, family one, family one, then this table can be a family two. They are not related to each other at all. But in my banquet hall, these all families will be related to each other. So families is like a project, let's say. Okay, so my family here also, my family one and two will be there, but they will be related to the same organization. Okay, so I can do what I can do is I can create a private cloud like structure on my public cloud. Okay, that is all about the single tenancy is all about, right? So if you see this particular diagram, now if you come to this particular diagram, it will make more sense. In multi-tenants, which is a default mode of working in public cloud, right? Because on a public cloud, you will have you will share these resources with each other, right? So let's say Shrey will also have his own project running on the same data center, right? On the same rack, he will also has his own VM. However, he will not be able to see my VM. Harshal will also have a VM on the same rack, but I will not be able to see Shrey's VM. But technically, it is on the same rack, right? The same rack one will have multiple projects and their different projects. So Dia, maybe Dia also has another VM which is running on the same rack, right? So technically you are running your VMs or your configurations or your resources on the same rack at the data center side, right? That is nothing but your multi-tenant environment. Okay, so basically, if you see and understand this one, right? This is one VM. This is typically one VM. This is another VM. This is another VM. These are different customers. If you see the color coding, these are different customers that they are sharing on the same rack. They are not sharing, they are creating their resources on the same rack. But if you want, for your organization, you want a dedicated one. The word is dedicated. The important word is dedicated. If you want a dedicated space, that for that particular rack, you want only you to create your VMs. That is only for a particular customer, for your organization. You can share that across your projects, of course, right? So if you have, let's say, you are working for a bank. Okay, generally typically happens for government companies or banks, where they don't want to share the racks also with anyone else. Okay, so that's where or if you have some compliance issues, right? So you want to have a physical separation of your resources than other customers. That's where you go for single tenancy. That's where you can go for. I have not seen any of my clients yet opting for single tenants, because it's way expensive. Okay, way expensive than multi tenant. But I think, I hope, the conceptually it is very clear now. Okay, it is complete privacy for resources. Okay, you can share the this across projects for that customer. I mean, the customer means your organization, of course. For that organization, you might create multiple projects, and you can share these particular uh, multi-tenancy environment for entire across your project. Okay, multiple projects within your organization. So if you go to this one, you see single tenant nodes, right? So let's Not going to create this, but I can at least for sure I can tell you. So you have an option to create a node group. So basically they'll you have to create nodes and a node group. So and you have to select a region. Let's select a region and continue, and it will ask you to create a template. So no template is, maybe you can just simply you can say you have, it's like the VM that you have created, right? You have different set of machine types that you can select. Let's go for N1 for now. And if you see here, I can at minimum 16 disks I have to take. GPU I can take minimum 4 or 8, right? And based on that, let me create one template. Just for template creation is okay. It's not going to cost anything. And then I continue. Then for that particular node group, I'm just telling the auto scaling mode. If I keep it as off, right? So no, I mean, addition of new nodes will be manual. Okay, if I want to add new nodes, I will have to add it manually again by going to here and creating a node group. If I say on, then it will automatically scale up and scale down as well. So the new node groups will know new nodes will be created within that node group automatically if there is any new need, and if I don't need, then automatically it will scale down also. And another option is just scale up. So it will just keep on adding. It will never remove any nodes from your node group. Okay, so let's keep it off for now and say you can just tell them the number of nodes. Okay, so 10. So it will create that with 10, and it will never upscale or downscale, downscale that. Then this maintenance. So for any maintenance activity, how, what do you want? So you want some recommended practice of Google, or you want a restart, you want to restart the nodes uh, within this particular node group after the maintenance, or you want to migrate within the node group. So what will happen is, let's say you have created 10 nodes, and there is any maintenance activity. So if you want, you can select the maintenance activity and your policy, let's say you migrate, right? So what will happen is it will create another VM until then, and it will migrate that particular old VM, and it will restore back the data on the old VM once the maintenance is done, right? But in a from an end user perspective, you won't see that happening, right? So because it will automatically take that particular policy to upgrade or to restart your machines or whatever you select, right? That way it is there. And then finally you can share this particular settings or whatever node group that you are creating. Do you want to share that with other projects? Do you want to share with all the projects within organization, or do you want to select with particular selective projects in your organization, right? So based on that, and then you can create this. I'm not going to create that, but this is the way you book the sole tenant nodes, and this much configuration will be allocated only for you. uh, that will be reserved only for you. Okay, so that's about sole tenants. Then we have other options like TPU. I'm going to cover this very briefly. It's not that really required. It's not even in the, I think, I have not seen any questions when I appeared for the certification exam. But you can create a TPU. TPU is basically, TensorFlow unit that you can create. You can create a separate node. If you have any AI processing to be done, you can create a TPU node. Okay, so it's like a machine with it is very much I can say customized for AI processing, right? So that is another way to create another machine using TPU. Another one is committed use discount. I think we yesterday we discussed about this, that for 1 year or 3 years you can make some commitments with Google Cloud. You can purchase the commitment, and it's just like create a commitment. You can give any name here, and for a particular region that you have to commit, and you want which type of machines that you want, and you want how much cores, how much memory that you want, right? So let's say I create anything, 480 GB of RAM and 40 virtual CPUs that I want for 1 year. So this much of reservation will cost me monthly 1500 uh, dollars or a monthly estimations. If I go for 1 year of reservation, if I go for 3 years of commitment, then that will reduce to $1000. So the more longer duration commitment that you do, you will get more discount basically. Okay, that's about committed use discount. Then finally about one more thing I wanted to cover was about disk, right? Okay, so disk is nothing but an external persistent disk that we had selected while creating this particular VM. You remember from UI balance disk we had created using 10 GB. Now if I want to attach any external disk, let's say I had created a disk from another VM and I wanted to attach this to the existing VM itself, right? Somebody had asked me a question about partitioning, right? So that one also can be done on the Linux machine. So you can create a disk, okay, from here. Let's say I can give it a name, additional disk, okay. It does not allow me hyphens, I think, and not even capital letters. Okay, hyphens are allowed, underscores are not allowed. Okay, additional disk. I can create that in central region, let's say, right? And if I select zonal or region, if I select zonal, I can attach that disk to that particular zone only. If I create it regional, I can select multiple regions and I can attach to one of these two uh, zones within that region. So what was my VM, in which region in which zone I don't remember. Let me see that. Okay. So this is my cloud shell. Okay, so this is my VM, right? Let me SSH into this. This is on central 1C, right? And let me SSH into this meanwhile, and let me go on the create disk that we were continuing, right? So let me select your central C and let me create a blank disk. That's fine. I just wanted to show you how to attach a new disk. So if you have any existing disk, directly you can attach, but since we don't have any existing disk to attach, I am creating a sample disk, a blank disk. That's okay. You can simply select these three. You cannot select the fourth one, the extreme one. You can select these type. I can say 10 GB, right? Or I can say 20 GB. That's fine, so that you don't get confused. This time I'll get 20 GB of disk. And snapshot schedule, if you want a snapshot of this disk, it will create a snapshot also, and it will periodically create snapshots also. For now we don't want, so that's okay. And let me create this. Okay, meanwhile I have not attached this disk. Okay, I have just created an additional disk for now. Okay, now the VM that in which I want to attach this. So I have already logged in here, right? And there is a command lsblk. Okay, so this will show me the currently what are all the things that are mounted. If you see here, there's SDA1, which is of around 10 GB. Okay, this is my SDA1, which is attached as a partition on this particular VM for now. Okay, we have not so far attached this additional disk. So I have created an additional disk of 20 GB, but I have not attached it, right? So let's try to attach that now. So for that, I'll go to my VM instances and I'll click on this one. I click on that VM on which I want to attach. Let me edit it. Click on edit. Let's see if I can attach it on a running VM itself. Okay, I hope so. So the VM is still running, right? If I scroll down, boot disk site and detach, no, additional disk, right? So add a new disk or attach an existing. Now I have a existing one, right? Because we have separately created one. So let's click on a existing disk and my disk should appear over here. That's a 20 GB not attached. So right now I'm attaching. I can also tell that if the instance is deleted, the VM is deleted, I want to keep the disk, right? And I can say now it is going to attach and I just save this configuration. Will it take an effect automatically on my SSH session? I'm not sure. Let me check. I don't think so also. But let it just get edited and okay, my VM is edited. Let's check the same command again. Yeah, it has taken effect. So if you see here, SDA was my 10 GB, right? And SDB is now 20 GB. So I have attached additional disk on the same VM. Um, and that's my new partition, so I can install anything else in my another disk also. Okay, so that's how we can use disks also. The next one, let's take a break, I think. Okay guys, if you feel that I am in my flow and you want a break, just message me as well on the chat box. Okay, I tend to forget in the flow. Before that, let me just quickly check how many questions are there. Let's take questions and then after 5 minutes we'll go for break. So faster, because yes, that is correct. The snapshot has reference, not images. Yes, it does not have. It has a reference, but it does not store the OS. Can you explain the types of disk? Dia, I have already explained the types of disk. It will take another 10-15 minutes. But depending upon the, okay, let me quickly show you that. I'll quickly take you to there. Okay. So the disks we have discussed over here. So there are four different types of disks. The first is the hard drive disk. It's just like HDD, the hard regular hard drives that you have. These are the slowest one, but the cheapest one, right? The other three are solid state drive, the SSDs. Nowadays we have more SSDs, right? SSDs attached to our on our desktops or laptops, right? These are way faster than HDDs, but those are expensive also. And depending upon these different categories, their performances are different. So if you need higher performance, you go for SSD persistent disk. If you want a balance between performance and the cost, so you can go for a balanced one. And if you want extreme, the highest performance, the highest IO input output operations, intensive performance, then you can go for the extreme. And minimum size for extreme is 500 GB at least. For other ones you can go for 10 GB also. This also you can go for 10 GB. So by default, when we create a VM, it goes automatically for the balanced performance between the and the cost, right? So that's all about the different types of disk. Okay. uh, if we boot the VM from snapshot, rest configuration can change for a new VM. Yes, you can change the configuration for the rest of the configurations. It's basically the backup of your data. Samshir has a question. So snapshot restores the OS plus data? No, no. For that we have something called as images, right? We talked about images. So images is the next topic that I was going to cover, but let's cover that after the break. So images is the one where you have OS and data both. Okay, so if you forget to delete the VM, are we charged after 24 hours? No, you are charged immediately after you create it is being allocated to you. After 24 hours, you get recommendations. That's what I mentioned in one of the point. After 24 hours, you get recommendations for your VM, but you get charged immediately, not after 24 hours. But for now, that charges will be applied from your 300 free credits that you got. But that's why if you want to, don't end up getting bills after that $300. That's where don't activate your free tier account to paid ones, and always try to delete that VM, because we are not just creating VMs. We are going to create so many different resources, right? In different modules. So you want to use that 300 credits for all of those. So make sure you delete them. By default, is there a backup snapshot taken? How frequently is the backup taken in an organization? Usually, you can. I showed you in one of the place, right? You can schedule the snapshot backup also. Yeah. So second, here itself you can select snapshot page. Go to snapshot page and you see here a create snapshot schedule. Click on that, and you can select daily you want, hourly you want, weekly you want, daily which time you want, right? Between that time it will automatically take the snapshot backup. Okay, then do VMs run on cloud, public, private, shared, community? Yes, any resource, not just VMs, any resource that you create will run on their infrastructure, right? Okay, so Dinanath, to secure my project, what are all the security I need to apply for multi-tenancy? For multi-tenancy, of course, IAM is the first place where you have, and of course you have SSO, because when you have your own organization node, so you have SSO configured, right? So only the people with valid SSO login to your ID will be able to log in your project. And at the resource level, right, at the rack level, that will be taken care by your public cloud provider, be it GCP or Amazon or whatever. You have to trust them that they have security aspects. That's where, right, I said for government companies or for any compliance related issues, that some of the companies still want private clouds and all, right? They don't really trust the public clouds. But nowadays this trend is changing. Even government companies and banks are also using the public clouds, right? And then there are some other security perimeters, VPC and all those things, which we are going to cover in networking. So just hold on for that. That how in multi-tenancy mode I can secure my VMs, right? That was the question from Dinana. So again, there are multiple aspects. So networking is also one of the major aspect where you can secure everything. You don't. So the very first thing is, and the very basic thing is, when you create VMs, you don't want to create external IP addresses, right? Just create with internal IP addresses. It will be very restrictive. Okay, so it will be if I tell you to connect to this particular VM, nobody from you guys will be able to connect, because this is my private IP, which is only accessible within my project. Okay. If I committed compute for 1 year, how will I get billing monthly? Yes, you will get monthly billing, Pravij. Correct. Instead of attaching the extended disk, can we increase the same disk assigned to the VM? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Let's check. We have a disk. We had this existing disk. Let's try to edit. Yes, you can do that as well. You can make it 20 GB and you can save it. Let's see. And good question. I also get to learn from your questions, guys. This is good learning. Uh, so once this is done, let's see this command. Correct. So you see SDA1 20 GB. So that has been upgraded at in place itself, right? But you can attach any other one, right? So it's not just for increasing the size, right? So if you have any backup of any other data that you want to attach to the same VM, right? So that is where you will surely need an additional disk, right? So it's not just for increasing the space on your VM. Okay, but yes, you can do this way as well. If for the blank instead of blank attaching a blank disk, you can do that. How can we migrate on-premise VM to GCP? Hold on for that, Dinanath. That will be in networking. Okay, so I think I have answered all the questions. Let's take 6 minutes of break, 7 minutes of break. 9:25 will resume back. Okay, so 9:25 we will resume back. Okay, okay then. Yeah, just enjoy your break, have something, and be sharp back on 9:25. I am going to cover rest of the remaining topics, and if time permits, as I said, we'll see how to connect from Putty, from some external tool, how to connect to VM. Okay, so that will be interesting. Okay, see you then. Okay, guys, I'm back. So the next topic we'll cover is images. Yeah. Okay. I hope you guys are also back. Okay. So OS. So what is images is basically OS images, right? So images in general terms also, images are nothing but OS images. Okay. So it's basically backup of OS data plus your any boot disk data and your application configurations, right? Like class path or path variables. If you guys know about this thing, in Windows it is like this, right? So in like Bash RC, in case of Linux, some configuration level uh, parameters or files that also is taken care, or any pre-installed softwares uh, on your machine, right? So basically you can create the backup of entire these all these things into one bundle, that is you can call it as a image. Now uh, here also you can have two types, so I can say types in Windows. Here you can have public images and you can have your custom images. You can create your custom images from your VM. So let's say you have created a VM, you can create an image of that particular VM, and then you can broadcast that I mean, you can use that sorry, your custom image to create multiple VMs that will have all those configurations by default. And the one which we use multiple times now while creating multiple VMs, we use public image, right? We just simply gone to this particular page on VM instances, uh, uh, sorry, VM instances. And when we click on create instance, we have that option where we selected the Debian OS and all, right? So that is nothing but where you have different images. Let me show you that as well. So the one that you have here, right here, this is nothing but that image from which this VM is going to get built. Also, you can see, mm, so based on the OS variant and its version, the basically the respective um, image will be selected, because Google has a set of lot of public images they already have. So if I open this particular VM's configuration and if I go down, I showed you, right? This is the image, exact image that has been used. So the same image we can see here also. If you go to the images section, you will see all the public images that are there are provided as a predefined images that we have by this one, right? So let's see this one, right? This is the image that we had used Debian uh, with this particular architecture, Debian family 11. So 11, Debian 11 version of Debian type, and this is the bullseye, they call it as bullseye, and this is the image, public image, of course. This can be used by any people, right? But you can still have your own image also. You can create an image from your VM also, and you can import an image from other environment also. So what you need to do is, this is for creating a new image from one of the VM that you can just select, and this is attached. You need to stop the instance. Okay, so you have to stop the instance for creating any image. Okay, and uh, when we create an instance, let's see, no, for image only, well, I wanted to show you one thing. You can share this image across the projects, okay, or organizations also. So create image will be for, yeah, so you can create image from the disk, or you can create image from a storage, cloud storage file also. This is what I was talking about. If you select this, you can give a path of a GS bucket. And if you have any custom image, maybe let's say you have an on-premise setup, right? You have an on-premise which you want to bring that same image into cloud, right? So that's where you can create an image on your on-premise environment, and you can upload that image file onto your cloud storage GS bucket. Cloud storage means GS bucket. And then you can create a custom image. You have to create a custom image out of that image, right? And you can then, once you have that particular custom image, you can very well select from your instance page. When you have the option to select that particular images, that is where you can see that custom image being shown. Okay, so let me show you where. Not going to create that, but just go to this one, and here that will appear as a new custom image in your project. So that will appear over here, and just select that, and then select, and your VM will boot using that particular custom image. Okay, so that's again about the custom image and the public image. Public image are again maintained by Google, patched regularly. So all the patches are also available within that public image itself, right? Regularly by Google Cloud, right? Almost all Linux and Windows variants are available, right? Then custom ones, custom we already discussed, right? These are customer has to manage them, uh, create customized images and VMs, and then VMs from that, right? So this is your own image maybe, right? So you have to own this, you have to manage this. If there are any new patches that you want to apply, it is your responsibility, right? And then as I said, right, it you can share, can be shared across the projects within the org. You can share it with the different projects, where even though that image has been created in one project, you can share it with other projects also. Okay, that's it from for the images as well. And then we have something called as shielded VM. I wanted to talk about during the VM creation. We have seen these options, three options we get there. It's basically to add more security to your VM. Okay, at boot level or kernel level. Kernel means your OS, and it is also something called as rootkits. So these are some malwares attacks and all those things, right? There are some communities which are creating malwares, viruses, right, for their own needs, or maybe, right? So as a cloud provider, or as a security aspect of your VM, Google Cloud also provides more security to your VM at boot level, kernel level, and rootkit level using three options. So there are three options for this. Okay, we don't need to go into details on of this, but just you need to know. There will be no questions on this, but just I'm telling, go to advanced options, go to security, and here you can see turn on secure boot, turn on VTPM. Okay, that's virtual trusted platform module. Okay, and then we have turn on integrity monitoring. So you can just put on this one, and it will tell you that for the kernel level malwares and rootkits, it will protect your VM while booting up anytime. So it will give you boot level security by giving the secure boot if you turn on that. There will be no extra costing for this, okay? Just to be on the same page, there will be no extra pricing attached to your VM. I hope so, right? So it's not changing anything here. Then VTPM is virtual trusted platform boot. So when you do a boot, so before the the pre-boot, it will check the integrity of your machine, and it will use some key generation mechanisms and all, right? So protections for your VMs, right? And then integrity monitoring is for the logging purpose, right? So based on the loggings, it will send all those logs, and it will keep on checking the runtime integrity of your VM. So it will check internally. I mean, this is internal, we don't get to see anything by our eyes, but internally Google Cloud will check the integrity of your VM based on the logs that will be flowing to the logging service, right? So these are some additional options that you can select for security of your VM. Okay, so those were the three things. Let me just write it down so that you have that on your notes. Virtual trusted platform module boot. Okay, and the third one was integrity, right? Integrity monitoring. Okay, so I think we have for 20 minutes. Let me check the questions. If we don't have many questions, we'll check the that particular thing as well. Let me first check whether I have missed anything. Pricing, yes, we have discussed yesterday itself, uh, and I also showed you, right, how the pricing looks like. The right side on the VM creation page, you can see that. Pricing, cost management, images, snapshots, so lifecycle, disk options, machine types. Yes, we have seen everything, and this is what we I'm going to cover in 20 minutes. Okay, so let me take the questions first. Instead of okay, 1 second. Okay, so instead of attaching, okay, we have answered this. How can we migrate? Okay, that is on hold. Dinanath, is node template creation is region based? Yes, it is a region based. You can yes, you can select a region in which you want that node template to be created. I was trying to create a node template. I was not able to create. We just created a node template, right? You can go to the node template and try that out. I don't think why you should not be able to. Just need to select the region, whatever is the, and if it is not able to, it will throw you some error. Okay. So if we go to the node templates, right? So we had created this node template while creating on the fly when creating the node group. It had asked me to create a template because I did not had created any template. So I had created this template on the fly. So if you see here, you have to give a region. Following is the error. Creating no template, one field. Region does not support. Note to this with accelerator of type NVIDIA, Tesla, and count 4. Okay, let me try. Okay. What is that? N2 node, which was the type that you had selected, 640. Okay. Then some disk and GPU Tesla T4. T4. Okay. Let me create. Creating a template. Okay. Creating a template field error does not support. Okay, so this particular region that you had selected, this particular region, you see here, US Central one does not support this particular combination. That's why. So you just have to select in another region. Okay. So with this configuration, you can't have any. node group or sole tenancy will not be available for this particular combination, I would say, right? That's basically the meaning of it. Is a node template creation region based because I'm trying to create. Yeah, I think you have posted a question again. Next question, the image will include everything repo like custom application data present till date. Correct. Exactly. For custom image, any extra charges will be applied. Yes. For images, custom images, because it is your image, right? You are creating that image and you're hosting that on the Google Cloud. That will be having some cost attached to it. Will security slow VM startup? Might be, but I don't think so. You will even recognize that, okay? Because we are adding boot level security, right? So while booting up that machine, it will check all those validations and all. But as we have seen, right, within 20-30 seconds, the VMs got booted up, right? So I don't think that will be too much of a slowness, you would say, right? So what is the boot level, kernel level, and rootkits? So basically, boot means your OS, right? So OS level malwares, right? Or the kernel level malwares. Malwares, you can understand, like there are different types of viruses, right? Virus, malwares, or other some other terminologies I'm not having on top of my head right now, right? But those who can disturb the settings or some do some unwanted stuff within your VM, or can corrupt some files, like all those things are nothing but your uh, malware. So boot level or kernel level security that you get with this shielded VM, Shabi. Can we reduce the you can try out, Pravij. I mean, these are simple things that I want you guys to try out, okay? You can try to reduce the size of your existing disk. If there is no other extra cost for shielded VM, then we can choose always same for more security. Yes, Shiva, that is also you can do. There's no extra cost for that. Okay, so I think we have only 15 minutes now. Let me see if I can cover that. Okay, so now let's go to the compute engine and VM instances. We have this particular VM, right? So let me copy the external IP of this particular VM. Okay, and what I can do is let me putty download. Now I can't tell you what is putty and all. I mean, I can't give a lesson on that, but just me putty download. Let me check their website. Putty Gen Putty. Yeah, yeah. So maybe from here, let me post it to everyone. You can go here and install Putty on your machines. I have it already on my machine. And then I think Putty Gen website is also here. You can go to this one also. Okay. Any one of this is fine. And then you install Putty and Putty Gen. Okay. For depending upon what type of machine that you have, right? You just install that 32-bit, go for this one, and then at the bottom over here Putty Gen, right? Just go for this one, Putty Gen. So you install these two things, okay, and that will appear like this. Okay, so I have a shortcut, I mean, created on my here. So I have a Putty and Putty Gen. Not sure Putty Gen is working. Okay, so this is a Putty key generator. Putty Gen is key generator, and Putty is another one to connect. Okay, so what are these two softwares is, uh, I hope most of you might have used, right? So this is another CLI, okay? a command line interface for your Linux boxes. So if I go here, let me close that, right? So if I have an external IP and I don't want to create an SSH session from here, I want to maintain that from external. So let's say I can put that IP address over here, right? And I can open this. Let's say connect. So it is asking me for login. So let me put, let's say, not, let me put login ID as Harshal. So it's not supported authenticate method. It's not allowing me, okay, because of the public key, right? So basically, the way to connect to this particular VM from external applications like Putty is using public key and private key. Okay, so how does that works is, let me explain you here once. So, so you have a VM here. Let me take a black pen. So you have a VM, okay. Then on this VM, you need you have a lock, let's say, right? A lock, and then there is a key, okay. For this one, okay. So this is called as a private. Sorry, the public key. Sorry, this is the public key, and this key is nothing but your private key. So this combination, the public key and the private key, when that matches, then only you get authorized. Okay. So what you do is you store a public key here and you broadcast your public key to everyone, right? Whoever has the matching private key, that person only will be able to access this particular VM. Okay. So if I log in with Harshal dot, that is private key is written as .ppk file. Okay. On my desktop, I can write a ppk file. I'll show you how we generate. That will be my private key, and I will store my public key here on the VM. So what will happen is, if I set that I want to log in as Harshal and here is my private key file, this particular file will be validated against my public key. And if that lock key mechanism works fine, I'll be authorized as a Harshal user. Okay. So we'll see that in action now. So first of all, we need to have a private key and public key, right? That's why we need this particular putty key generator. Okay. So one second, give me 1 minute. I think there needs to be, I had faced some issues earlier. File key, and what was that option? This is okay. Parameter proven, this is also okay. One second. I think I have the link for that error. Let's check that error. Okay, we have to go here and set it as older version. Okay, okay. So I hope, let's try that out first. So go here, okay, key, and then change this and set it to 2. The previous version, the latest version is not supported. And then once you set that, then let's try. So what you need to do is generate a public and private key first of all. In Putty generator, in PuttyGen software, just click on generate, okay, and then all you need to do is just create some pattern with your mouse. See, I'm just moving my mouse, right? So that will be my unique pattern. So using that pattern, it has created 2 keys. This is my key here, right? Here you can see this is my public key. I can broadcast this public key to anywhere, to my VM, let's say, right? So and I want this to have, okay, let me put Harshal as a name over here. That will be my login ID. Okay, for this login ID, now this is the public key. Okay, let me select all and copy this. This is my public key. Now if I go here and go to this VM, I need to go to this particular VM, and as I said right on the notes, I need to let this VM know about my public key. So where is that? Okay, here it is. I can't add it directly. I think I need to stop the VM. Oh no, sorry, I did not click on edit itself. Okay, so let's go down below, and there is a section SSH keys, right? You see here we had uh, automatically we see two entries over here. This is because we clicked on SSH on the console from the console, right? So this is being taken care automatically, but if you want my own, I can do that way here. So I can just click on add item, paste it here, okay, and that's it. Just save it. So now my VM knows about my public key, right? So my VM now knows about this part. So my VM knows about my public key. Now I need to log in with my private key. So how do I generate my PPK file? PPK file is my private key. So go to the generator and you can say save my private key. So yeah, just say yes. And let me save. Okay, I already have here. Okay, don't not to worry. Let me replace this Harshal.ppk. Do you want to overwrite? Yes. So I hope that file is overwritten now on my laptop. Okay. Now how do I log in using that ppk file? Okay. So if I show you that, I have this file, right? This is just now written 953. This is my private key. I need to log in with this so that when it tries to log in or authorize, this private key will be matched against the public key which I stored on my VM, right? I told my VM this is my public key. Now I'm going to tell my connecting application, I mean the putty, right? I'm going to tell my putty that here is my private key. Use this private key one while you try to log into that VM, right? And how do I log into that VM? I need the public IP of external IP of that VM. So where can I get the IP address? Uh, 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 uh. Okay, it's right here. So I copied the external IP address. You can copy it from the out. I mean the the first page, the previous page as well. And then what I can do here is I can say Harshal at the rate this so that it will try to log in with Harshal. And before I log in, you see a section here, right? SSH. Then expand that, and under SSH section you have auth. Go to auth, and here the last option where you can upload the private key. Just browse and provide your PPK file. Okay, and then you say open. So if you see here, now it used my username because I had used this one, right? Harshal. Now it will not show it because I have not saved this configuration, but on this one, right? You remember Harshal at the rate IP address. So it will try to use this username, and for this username I am going to use that particular ppk file which I had uploaded, right? And what it will do is it will attempt that Harshal's ppk file as a private key, and it will try to match against the public key on the VM which we have stored on the VM itself, right? Here if you see here, this is the username, and this is its public key. And the private key is never, you should not give that ppk file to anyone else, right? So what we have done in most of our projects, what I do is I create a let's say developers kind of username, and I give that ppk file to that developers team. That is one way you can do. But what happens is you have one ppk file being shared within your team, right? And then if somebody has deleted some files or somebody has accidentally done some misconfiguration, you will in the logs you will see this id has done something, right? You will never be able to find out who exactly has done that particular you will not be able to pinpoint that particular person, right? That's where it's best to use configure with that particular email id or that particular name and create their own private key, and then they log in with that particular private key only. And you tell not to share your private key to anyone within your team also. Okay, this is one time activity. Now I can connect to this particular vm any point of time. Now if you see here, what happened is, if you if I show you pwd, it has created a a home and directory within my home directory with my id, right? Just the way I showed you on ssh. On ssh it had used my this id. Similarly, here it has used my custom ID. And also, you remember when I went into this and I showed you the console. Let's see, I showed you creating user, something like that, right? Let me creating user. Yeah, I had shown you when we clicked on SSH. Yeah, I had shown you it had created a user, and it has created some keys also, right? Similarly, let's hope that it had creating user Harshal. See, it has created a user Harshal also. That's why I see home Harshal. Okay, and I think first time it made a wrong entry. And then it was authorized using the private key. Updating the keys for Herschel. Okay, that's all the logs that I can see over here. I hope this was clear as well. 2 more minutes that we have. Let me check the questions. When we create, so see, I'm not going to cover how we install the putty and puttygen and all, right? So that's on you. It's just like any other software, I would say, right? Any other software, just go and click on next, 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 and then use those softwares the way I have done. And this is the recommended practice. In projects, you will see people connecting from putty, okay? But this is just one time configuration that you need to do, and then you can use putty to connect to your VMs. Okay. One sec. When we create a VM, the cost is deduced for the complete month. That means no matter we delete the VM on the same day or the last day of the month, it is minus. No, no, no. As as I said, right, the pricing happens per second billing, right? Per second billing happens on Google Cloud. So the moment it is allocated to you, the pricing starts from the seconds. If you keep it for 2 hours, 2 hours, whatever equivalent seconds it is up and running. Once you delete after 2 hours, it will be charging you only for the 2 hours, whatever seconds. Okay. Don't say that is just estimated price. You must have seen that was an estimated price. Doesn't mean that that's a billing that you are going to pay. Okay. To access multiple VMs, how do we generate common key? It's the same key. This is just a lock and key mechanism. Just go to another VM, and the public this public key, right? This public key. Just copy. Go to another VM. Add that public key there. So go to that. Edit this. Go to the bottom, SSH keys, add item, say, and save. And then go to VM instances. clicking in on, I mean, opening in a VM instance is another window. That's it. Now what I need to do is, hopefully it is saved, still saving. Meanwhile, I'll get the external IP of my machine. Okay. And here I'll create another session, new session. Now this time, let me just try to paste the IP directly, and in under SSH, I just give the same PPK file. See the ID with which you are logging in, right? The same PPK file you should give, and for that PPK file, the public key should be present on that VM on which you are going, right? So let me open, accept. It will ask me for login because I had not given Harshal at the rate, right? So this time I need to feed it. So I logged in my migrated VM. This was my first VM. This is my migrated VM, right? You see, and PWD. I see a Harshal folder here. So it has created a Harshal user on this machine also. That was your question, Madhvi, I think, right? Aman has a question. When we create a VM, I think that is already answered. Shiva has a question. Private key will authenticate with the public key which has been already mapped to VM. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to convey. Public key is already mapped to your VM, and when you authorize something with your ID, you need your private key. You need to tell that this is the private key. This is my key, and lock is already there on the VM. Just check whether that lock can be unlocked with my key. Okay. SSH for authentication is only for dev team when they need to SSH. Uh, yeah, I mean this is better way because there are other like multi-putty. Okay, I am not sure whether you guys know about that, but in one of the project we were using multi-putty. Okay, let me check the images. So what happens is it's just like, yeah, multi-putty. It's multi-tapped putty. So you can have just like in Chrome, right? We create multiple tabs. So you can connect to multiple VMs on the tab in multiple tabs. And then from here itself, like it will look like this. And you can switch between the VMs instead of you going to the console, doing SSH into different windows and all these things. Yeah. And every morning, since in enterprise level, in company level, you won't stop the VMs every now and then. This will be up and running all the time. So every morning when you log in into your system, you can simply go here and just log in into all the sessions. That way it will be easy for a developer team to log in. Creating user login interface, this is one time activity. Okay, so using SSO is different. Yes, for SSO that will be for your console. Is there more efficient way giving SSH access? This is what I know, Dia. The most effective way I have seen in projects will be via SSH will be this one, which I showed you. Or involves manual creating private key, public key, adding public key. You can do one key and one pair of public key and private key. You can circulate within your team. Make sure that it is not leaked. But just like doesn't mean that when you join a company, why do they create your own why do they create your ID card? Why do they create your a machine for you? Why do they create a ID and password on their databases, right? Because that's a part of your confidentiality, right? It is very obvious, Dia, right? So it's better to have a better tracking. That's why I suggest you create public and private key for each of the individual and tell them not to expose, because it will be their own responsibility. Because if something accidentally deleted or something mishappen on that particular VM, it will be tracked who has done that, right? So that way it will be easy for tracking. Okay, and not every time. You don't need to create that every time. Once you have that key, you can use that public and private key for any VMs. Okay. Okay, so I think I answered all the pending questions. Are there any more questions? Please post it. Else, otherwise, I wanted to convey one more thing, guys. People might have joined from middle also. Some of the people do switch the batch. Uh, so people who do not know about the instructor rating, I have seen many people giving good ratings. Good gives me 0 marks. Excellent gives me 1 mark, and bad or average gives me -1. Okay, so if you feel I'm not doing up to the mark, if you feel that any you know give me average or good or bad, any of these, then please at least give me a reason or tell me the reason where I can improve upon, right? Give me a chance to improve upon. So I see 9 or 10 good marks, so I'm expecting comments if you are giving me good, so that I can improve myself. That was my one message, quick message. Okay, so excellent will give me a 1 mark. I feel free to give me good appreciations or any good things that you are learning from me on excellent also. Doesn't mind, I don't mind. But for good and below ones, at least give me some inputs why you are giving me good or bad or average. Give me a chance to understand why what is going wrong, right? So it will help me shape the delivery better. It might help us to go beyond, for other modules that we have in future, right? So that way it will be easy, better for me to plan, right? I hope I'm able to convey the message. So with that being said, I think we can conclude for today. Thanks, Shiva. Shiva says you are doing great job, Harshal. So yeah, it motivates the instructor. So thanks for that word. And yeah, feel free to drop off now. Just feel the feedback for me and provide the comments. I mean, doesn't matter which category you select, but yeah, provide some comments. I'll highly appreciate. Okay, so have a nice Sunday. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. And yeah, one more thing before you guys drop off. Next weekend we'll start with networking. I have attached some of the basic notes. Okay, so let me show you here. I won't log in into the portal, but let me show you. I have uploaded two PDFs. One is networking basics and one is GCP, networking in GCP. I am going to talk about networking in GCP. I'm not going to cover the basics of networking. So that's why that's not in the scope of this project, because if we, I mean, sorry, the course, if I go in basics, try teaching from basics, it will be more than 3 hours in basics itself, right? So I want you to go through this PDF. Also, one more thing, just a minute, I will not take much of your time. Let me just check. I have somewhere. Okay, so let me post this one. Just let me know if you have got this message. I just posted to everyone. Can I get a quick confirmation? So the last point, right? Understand the basic concepts of networking before the GCP session, the next session. So network, subnets, RFC, CIDR ranges, firewall rules, routers, VPNs. Just go through all these concepts. At least high level understanding of these. Um, what are these concepts? I will not teach you, but I'll teach you how a network can be created in GCP, how a subnet can be created in GCP, right? So that way it will be easy for us to make more sense. Otherwise you will feel that okay, I'm not going deeper, and it will not make sense what I'm teaching in the next one. Okay, and that's very important concept, and it has a highest weightage in your certification as well on the networking. Okay, so just keeping that in mind. Hope you will add today's rough notes. Yes, I am doing that, and I'll add for today also. Shiva, yeah. Thank you, Nahid. Thanks a lot. And yeah, thank you everyone. Feel free to drop off if you have any questions you want to talk to me. I can make. you, if you have any issues, I can unmute you as well. Now we have some time, so otherwise, uh, feel free and enjoy the day. So let me know if anyone has any doubt that they are not able to explain on the chat. We can talk as well. I'm around 2 minutes. I'm going to wait. Then I'll be also dropping off. Yep. Please unmute me, Shrey. Okay. Shrey, just hold on. So we'll talk. Sachin, thank you. Thanks, Shabby. Anyone else? Okay, I think only Shrey. Okay, I'm unmuting you, Shrey. Uh, I just unmuted you. So you can also unmute
Sure.
yourself and yeah, Shrey.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm audible.
Yes, Shrey, you're audible.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashwin. Yeah. So
Sure.
Ajay, I think you are doing good. So I don't. I mean, you're trying your best. I believe. When people
Hmm.
will practice, I think they will be getting more insights, and that way I think.
Yes,
So
yes,
you know,
that
my
is absolutely
yeah.
my point is also. And I was telling in the first 2 minutes of today's session that you need to practice. That's
Correct.
where it will make sense, right? Yeah.
So
It's
my
Abhishek.
question was still there. Like there are three different, like you have shown multiple ways of doing things. No? Like
Hmm.
for
Correct.
example, creating a VM, we
Console,
can use
Cloud
a
Shell, and Cloud
Linux,
SDK. Yeah. And APIs
right?
also.
Like
Yeah. Hmm.
correct. So is it like from a certification point of view? For example, if I like I'm from a HANA background, a app and all things, so not into much in Linux and so stuff. So like if I start with having a GUI based start, there's a GUI version you've seen, and also you today you showed that we can also use a
Gcloud command.
pre-filled G cloud command. We can just copy and
Correct.
paste into that. So
Hmm.
uh, is it important to learn Linux and all these commands, or is it more important to understand how a virtual machine works so that we can use a
Hmm.
GUI version? Is that
Hmm.
sufficient? Is that good, or do we also need to dwell into the Linux and the basics of that as well
Okay,
for
so
now?
good question. So good question, Shrey. So basically, it depends on the certification that you're opting for, right? So if you are going for a developer perspective, right, associate developer certification, that that is where you will need a developer perspective to see the GCP, realm. Whereas if you go for an architect certification, architect are supposed to know the conceptual things. I mean, in deep, of course, but you don't need to write the code, right? So that they understand, and you won't have you don't have to you may have to have some basic, of course, basic understanding of the Gcloud commands, but you don't have to mug it up. You don't have to answer. You will not have questions on completing the particular what I can say, half of the command is provided and you need to complete. That kind of questions will not be there for the architect certifications. But for from the your I don't know about your background, right? So if you are coming from a if you are going for a developer certification, then you might want to know more on the
So
Gcloud and Cloud
we are
SDK as
planning
well.
for a data engineer certification actually.
Mhm. No, the
Because
questions will not be on coding. Okay, the questions will not be on the coding, of course. But
okay,
if you are doing the certification and what is your job in your company, I'm not sure, right? If you are supposed to write the code using Gcloud commands or using APIs, right, in your company organization, right? So that is where you need to know. But from the certification perspective, the you don't need to write any code. Just having some basics knowledge, or you don't need to mug up how I can create the what
correct.
I can say, the
VMN.
compute engine or the cloud storage. But knowing basic commands like gsutil commands, bq commands, or whatever I'm teaching, right? At least you can understand these things, very basic things. You don't need to write any or run anything during the certification.
So
But in
sure. So
projects, that depends, right? Yeah.
let me give some background. So the expectation that we have is currently like so from an organization point of view, I think there's more about BigQuery and stuff that is being currently utilized. But in the future, I think it would be more about like other technologies like we have BigQuery, we have Big Data, or Bigtable, sorry, Bigtable, and we have I think spanners, and I think there are different technologies which can which is being used like
Correct.
PubSub and all this stuff. So I think it
Correct.
will be more about what I can see is a data engineering part, but also as a data architect to understand what is fitting where, right? So
Correct.
it's not like very deep, but at least have a medium level of information on the technologies offered, and to have that, so that we can talk to someone, we can tell someone, we can recommend something, or we can at least do that. Primarily, it would be Google query, BigQuery for sure. So SQL and all that will also come, and also that's the reason I asked that question, and thanks that for answering that. But we also need to have an insight on the other aspect as well. So that is what the so it will start with BigQuery, but we want for a personal growth to understand everything apart from that, so that for example, BigQuery is a database tabular format. We have GCS, which is like a file based format. Then we have
No, no.
Bigtable, which is like yeah.
So Shrey, so basically that I'm going to cover in the storage sections. I'm also going to cover when to use what. Based on the use case also, I'll tell you when to use what, and I'll be touching upon and I'll be trying to give you the demos or hands-on on each of them. I mean, as much as possible, I'll give you. And for each of them also, we will, in case of BigQuery, let's say, right? So we'll be touching upon creating data sets, creating a table in that. How do we fire some queries? How do we see the data, right? How do we see the logs of a particular query, right? All those things we'll be covering.
Sure.
But so what I said is, let's say I create I cannot sit and create the entire migration from
Got it.
on-premise
So
into a BigQuery, right?
yes.
That's what
So
cannot
I got it.
be
So for
covering.
BigQuery, I think we all are expected to know the basics of SQL, at
Correct.
least DDL,
Exactly.
DML, whatever we have, at
Exactly.
least the basics of that. So that is, yeah, sure.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that I
Correct.
understand.
So
That is, and then,
depending.
yeah,
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Yes, that's exactly what
yeah,
I want. So depending upon the module that I'm covering, I'm telling you upfront that next weekend we'll be covering networking, right? So I want you to guys to go through basics. Similarly,
that's
for
great.
BigQuery, I'll be telling you that you need to have some SQL knowledge to
Hmm,
understand what is BigQuery, right? So
got it.
that that I'm expecting that you have some SQL. I can't, I hope you get my point that I can't teach you what is SQL or what is
Correct.
create
Got it.
command, right?
Completely got it. Completely.
So
So SQL, we have basic information because I've been in the organization also. We have been, as part of the role, we are somehow helping people to, like a business analyst, understand the requirement and get things in,
mhm, mhm,
into the, so not exactly the entire SQL thing, but at least a basic understanding is required. So we know that part, that what SQL, how it works, the basic
mhm.
commands. Also, I'm from HANA background and stuff like that. So we have some ABAP routines. So sometimes ABAP is similar to, I mean, not similar, but at least we have some, so so at least the basic is clear. At least we have some
Correct,
basic. So that should be up. Yeah.
correct, correct,
Uh,
correct.
sure, Harshit. I think and it would be
Anything
good.
else?
We are just
Uh-huh.
excited about it. The only thing is that if we can cover the virtual machine creation by GUI, that should be sufficient. That is what we want to make sure. That is at least for now. It would be good, right? Because
And
we it need
that we have covered, right? So I think
correct. That
hope
all we already covered. So we'll
yeah, yeah.
practice
That
that from our
so
side.
depending, right? Depending upon your background, or it's not just for you, right? So because I have to cover everything else also. So there are
Correct.
multiple people. Somebody might not be using GUI at all. So
Got it. Got it.
that's where I need to teach G Clouds as well. Okay.
Got it. Got it. So
So
I mean,
mhm,
definitely GCloud would be definitely useful. I'm practicing that as well. But I'm just
sure,
trying to
sure.
understand that if we practice at least one thing, that's because the concept will be clear. That to how exactly when a virtual machine is launched, what exactly are the parameters and stuff like that. So that way.
Mhm.
So I got the point.
Perfect.
So we'll
Sure, sure.
start with one and also make sure that if we can extend and have multiple all the options covered, that would be great for the bank.
Sure, sure. Of course, yes.
So thanks, actually.
Perfect.
Thank you so much
Thanks, Shreya.
for
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
thank you.
I'm muting you then. So anyone else has any questions or anything feedback to share? I still see some people. Um, thank you, Shrey. Thank you, Shabby. I think I send the documentation. On the left side you can click on different things and you can traverse on this documentation. Okay, is there anything else that I can assist you guys with? Okay, then let me just take a PDF of this and I'll upload it right away, and then yeah, so just feel free to drop off. I don't want to hold you now. And yep, so DC we have covered, and this is class 4. Fine. This is the name of the file that you will find. Okay, guys. Then thank you. I can conclude and see you next week. Just come prepared with some basics of networking, okay? So that it will make more sense. Okay. Okay. Then thank you everyone and enjoy the weekend. Bye.